Climate change is one of the most important issues facing us today. Scientists have shown that, starting with the Industrial Revolution, our increasing use of fossil fuels is increasing the warmth of planet Earth. We are in fact pushing Mother Nature into new territory at a rate that she has likely never seen before. We need to change, and we means everybody.
Climate change refers to a long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns. These shifts may be natural, but since the 80s, human activities has been the main driver of climate change. Primarily due to burning of fossils like coal, oil, and gas, which produces heat-trapping gases. Climate change describes a change in an average condition, such as temperature and rainfall, in a region over a long period of time. NASA scientists is warning, and many of the warmest years on record have happened in the past 20 years.
Climate affects nearly every aspect of our lives, from our food sources to our transport infrastructure, from what clothes we wear to where we go on holiday. It has a huge effect on our livelihoods, our health, and our future. Climate is a long-term pattern of weather conditions in any particular place. Everyone can help limit climate change, from the way we travel to the electricity we use and the food we eat. We can make a difference. Start with these 10 actions to help tackle the climate crisis. Save energy at home. Much of our electricity and heat is powered by coal, oil, and gas. Use less energy by lowering your heating and cooling, switching to LED light bulbs and energy-efficient electric appliances, washing your laundry with cold water, or hanging things to dry instead of using a dryer. Eat more vegetables. Eating more vegetables, fruits, whole grains, nuts, and seeds, and less meat and dairy can significantly lower your environmental impact. Producing plant-based food generally results in fewer greenhouse gas emissions and require less energy and water. Drive less. Walk, bike, carpool, or take mass transit more often. You'll save 1 pound of carbon dioxide for every mile you don't drive. Recycle more. You can save 2,400 pounds of carbon dioxide per year by recycling just half of your household waste. Check your tires. Keeping your tires inflated properly can improve your gas mileage by more than 3%. Every gallon of gasoline saved keeps 20 pounds of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. Plant a tree. A single tree will absorb 1 ton of carbon dioxide over its lifetime. In addition to the carbon dioxide, trees capture and also help to soil capture and store carbon. Despite not doing such an incredible job as oceans do, absorbing around 90% of all carbon emission and then suffering the impacts of ocean acidification, trees are extremely important to help stop climate change. Educate yourself and others. The importance of educating others about climate change cannot be overstated in our modern society. There are many platforms to us to utilize that can allow us to spread our message easily, whether you use word of mouth of social media. There are always ways to educate others on what climate change is going to our planet. You can help protect the planet by educating others about the dangers of climate change and how to act against it. Get active and vote. One of the best ways to improve climate change is to help those who will fight against it get into office. This means voting for legislation and politicians that aid against the detrimental effects of climate change. Many corruptions have politicians on their payroll and use them to lobby against legislation that would require more regulations against them. Voting the right people into office will help pass legislation that allows us to fight against these corruptions that are mainly to blame for climate change. It's important that we understand how the climate is changing so that we can prepare for the future. Studying the climate helps us predict how much rain the next weather might bring, or how far sea levels will rise due to warmer sea temperature. We know that our climate is changing due to humans, and these changes are already having a big impact to our lives. It's important that we understand how the climate is changing so that we can prepare for the future. We can also see which regions are most likely to be affected by extreme weather or which wildlife species are threatened by climate change. We describe the climate by looking at temperature, rainfall, snow, and wind data. This is usually averaged over seasons, years, decades, centuries, or more. We know that climate change is already occurring and that additional warming is unavoidable. If we hope to limit the negative impacts of climate change, we must prepare for identifying vulnerabilities.
Widespread scientific consensus tells us the world's climate is changing. These changes are creating new health risks in communities across the United States. Extreme weather, unhealthy air quality, and disease outbreaks are becoming more frequent and more severe, affecting more people in more places. Changes to our climate mean our communities need to prepare for the health risks of higher temperatures. Extreme heat can lead to heat stroke, heat cramps, heat exhaustion, dehydration, and death. Anyone can be at risk, but some are more vulnerable, including pregnant women, people with heart or lung conditions, young children, older adults, athletes, and outdoor workers. So how do we prepare for extreme heat? Communities can establish cooling centers, plant trees to lower urban temperatures, and educate residents on ways to protect themselves and others, such as drinking plenty of water and checking on older relatives and neighbors. A changing climate also means more frequent and more severe storms and flooding. That puts people at immediate risk of being injured or killed by debris, downed power lines, or floodwaters. After a severe storm or flooding event, possible health risks are contaminated food or drinking water, bacteria, viruses, and toxic chemicals in floodwaters, mold, and difficulty accessing healthcare services like emergency help, prescribed medications, and supplemental oxygen. In these events, older residents, people with disabilities, and lower-income households are more at risk. They may all have a harder time fleeing from a storm and may face more health risks if they can't evacuate. One thing we often miss: the mental toll. First responders who witness countless tragedies and residents who are forced to flee are more vulnerable to anxiety and depression, even those who have no history of mental illness. To prepare, communities can find out which neighborhoods, people, and resources are most at risk, upgrade infrastructure such as roads and sanitary sewer systems, and educate residents on how to stay safe during and after an extreme weather event, such as avoiding driving in flooded areas. As average temperatures rise across the globe, air quality can also change. That looks like longer and stronger pollen seasons, which can trigger asthma attacks and allergies, hotter temperatures and changing weather patterns, which can make air pollution worse by increasing the density of dangerous particles, and more frequent droughts that can lead to wildfires, which release dangerous pollutants into the air. Young children, people with asthma and respiratory conditions, older adults, and people with compromised immune systems are more at risk of being harmed. Work that can help communities prepare includes collaborating with community partners to set up health-focused air quality alert systems and educating residents on how to check alerts to know when it's safe to exercise outside. Change to our climate can also mean more risk of diseases spread by pests like ticks, mosquitoes, fleas, and rodents. With higher average temperatures, diseases transmitted by pests can multiply faster, spread to more locations, and infect people over longer periods of time each year.
That's why we need to prevent climate change, because it will cause significant harm to the health of persons and their communities by compromising food and water supplies. increasing risk of morbidity and mortality from infectious diseases and heat stress.